I wasn't supposed to notice her that much. At least, not in the way I did. It was a Tuesday, the kind that feels like it's been going on since Monday refused to end. The garage smelled of burnt oil and dust. My hands were blackened from brake fluid, a socket wrench slipping more than it should have, and the radio hummed low from somewhere near the tool chest. Then she walked in, not like she belonged there, but like she'd been here before and decided the place hadn't improved. Her heels clicked against the concrete, out of rhythm with the hum of the fluorescent lights. Mid-40s, maybe. Wavy hair pinned back carelessly, the kind that's done by habit, not vanity. A pair of dark glasses in her hand, a loose white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. She looked around, not at the cars, but at the people working on them, and her eyes stopped on me. "You the one who worked on the blue Volvo last week?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, wiping my hands on a rag that was already too far gone. She looked at me for a moment, her head tilted slightly, as if she was deciding whether to smile or sigh. "You tightened the steering too much." I straightened up, caught somewhere between defending myself and pretending I didn't care. "It was pulling too hard to the left before. Figured you'd rather have control than drift." That's when she said it. Quiet, but sharp enough to leave a mark. "Careful. You sound like you know me." There was a flicker in her tone, not cold, not amused, something in between. I couldn't look away. She had this way of holding a moment like it was hers to release, and you just waited until she did. "I don't," I said, "but I can learn." Her mouth curved, not quite a smile, more like she didn't expect me to answer that way. "You wouldn't last a week." And before I could think of something clever or stupid to say, she leaned in just slightly, resting her keys on the counter between us. Her voice dropped, lower, deliberate. "You can't handle me." I should have laughed, or shrugged, or said nothing at all, but something in her tone, that mix of challenge and fatigue, hit somewhere deep. So I said the first thing that came to me, raw and too honest for how little we knew each other. "Watch me try forever." For a heartbeat, the garage went silent. The radio buzzed, but it was like neither of us heard it. Her eyes lingered on mine a second too long, searching, maybe weighing whether I meant it or was just young enough to sound like I did. Then she picked up her keys, a small sigh escaping before she hid it under a polite smirk. "Fix the steering, not the driver," she said, and turned to leave. I watched her walk away, not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because something in her felt like an unfinished sentence. The bell over the door jingled when she left. The smell of her perfume, faint, expensive, nothing like the place we were in, lingered long after. I tried to go back to work. The wrench felt heavier, the air thicker. Every sound in the shop echoed differently. And when I closed up that night, her words replayed, uninvited. "You can't handle me." Maybe she was right. But even hours later, with oil still under my nails and the streetlights flickering outside, I couldn't stop thinking about how her eyes softened, just for a second, after I said I'd try. Like she almost wanted to believe me. The next time I saw her, she wasn't in heels. She was sitting on the curb outside the shop, elbows on her knees, the same Volvo parked crooked beside her. The late afternoon sun hit the metal just right, warm, blinding, and for a second, she looked like she didn't belong to the noise of the street. Her hair was tied up this time, a few strands loose, catching the light. "Steering still stiff?" I asked, setting my coffee down beside her car. She didn't look up right away. I didn't bring it for that. Her voice was quieter than before, almost soft, like she'd been talking to herself and forgot someone might answer. When she finally did look up, her eyes were rimmed red. Not from crying, maybe just from a long day, but something about it made me want to say less. "I was driving," she said, "and I just pulled over." That was it. No explanation. No excuse. Just that. I sat down beside her, not close enough to be intrusive, but close enough that if she wanted to talk, she wouldn't have to raise her voice. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and jasmine. Her perfume again, lighter now, like she'd used it out of habit, not intention. "You okay?" I asked, careful not to make it sound like pity. She gave a small laugh, one of those brittle ones that break before they finish. "You really don't know when to stay quiet, do you?" "Not my strongest skill," I said. "I'm better with engines." They only tell the truth when they're broken. That made her turn to me, slowly. Her lips pressed together, fighting a smile. You think people are that simple? I think people pretend they're fine until something stops working. She didn't answer, but her gaze lingered on me a second longer than it should have. I noticed her hands, small, unpolished nails, a faint scar on her wrist. The kind of details you only notice when you shouldn't be looking that closely. For a while, we just sat there. Cars passed. Someone honked. The world went on, impatient as always. But between us, there was this thin stillness, like the pause before a confession that never gets said. Then she exhaled, looked ahead again. You're too young to talk like that, she murmured. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she was already standing, brushing dust off her jeans. Her composure returned like a coat slipping back on. You should get back to work, she said. Yeah, I muttered, though neither of us moved right away. She looked at me then, really looked, and for just a heartbeat, I saw it. The weariness in her eyes, the way her fingers trembled before she hid them in her pockets. Then she smiled, gentle but uneven. You have no idea what you're getting into, she said. Maybe I didn't. But when she turned and walked away, I felt the pull again, quiet, forbidden, impossible to ignore. And this time, she didn't say goodbye. It was raining the third time we spoke, not the cinematic kind, just that slow, stubborn drizzle that makes the city smell like wet pavement and tired people. She was still at the garage long after closing, leaning over her car with the hood up. I didn't ask why she was there. I just handed her a flashlight. Didn't think you'd be here this late, I said. She didn't look up. Didn't think you'd care. I smiled faintly. I charge extra for caring after hours. That got a small laugh out of her, soft, real. She took the flashlight, her hand brushing mine for half a second. Cold fingers. The kind of touch that shouldn't matter, but does anyway. I stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, watching rain gather on the edge of the hood and fall in quiet drops. The shop lights buzzed overhead. She smelled like rain and coffee and something faintly sweet, like a memory that won't name itself. I didn't come for the car, she said finally, eyes fixed on the engine. I just didn't want to go home. That stopped me. I didn't ask why. You don't ask questions like that unless you're ready to hold the answers. We worked in silence after that, or pretended to. Her sleeve brushed my arm when she leaned forward. I could feel the warmth of her even through the cold air. Every time she spoke, her voice had that low, worn steadiness of someone used to holding things together. Why do you keep showing up? She asked suddenly. I didn't look at her. Because you keep breaking things. She smiled at that. Really smiled, then shook her head. You have no idea what you're trying to fix. A phone buzzed on the counter behind us. Her eyes flicked toward it, then away. The screen lit up. Daniel. She didn't move to answer. I pretended not to see. She pretended not to care. But the air between us changed, tighter now, full of words that didn't fit anywhere. Old friend. I asked, too gently. Old something, she said. Her hand hovered over the phone, then dropped. You ever wish people came with warning labels? Yeah, I said. But then we'd never touch them. She laughed, quiet and breathless. Then it was just the sound of rain again, heavier now, like the sky couldn't hold itself up either. I took a step closer. I didn't mean to. It just happened. She didn't move away. The distance between us felt deliberate, like a wire stretched too tight. Her hand brushed the edge of mine again, and I swear the world slowed down for half a breath. Her eyes lifted to mine, unguarded this time. And then, just as something in me leaned forward, her phone buzzed again. She exhaled, sharp and quiet. You should lock up, she said, stepping back. I nodded. My throat was dry. As she walked past me toward the door, her shoulder grazed mine, not by accident, I think, and she whispered, Don't make this harder than it already is. And then she was gone, leaving the rain, the hum of the lights, and the echo of a touch that almost became something else. It had been a week since the rain, but the silence between us never dried. She started showing up earlier now, always before the others, like she wanted to avoid witnesses. Some days she'd bring coffee, leave it on my workbench without a word. Other days, she'd just sit on the stool near the window, watching the street while pretending to check her phone. That morning, the light was different, gray, hesitant. She stood near the car I'd finished tuning, her hands folded around the edge of her coat, like she wasn't sure whether to stay or run. "You've been quiet," I said finally. She didn't turn. "You noticed?" "I notice a lot of things." She looked over her shoulder then. A small movement, but the kind that lands heavy. "That's your problem." I wiped my hands on a rag, trying to sound casual. Didn't realize paying attention was a flaw. "It is," she said, voice low. "If you don't know where to stop." I stepped closer, just enough to hear her breathe. The hum of the lights filled the space between us. "You want me to stop?" Her eyes met mine, calm, unreadable, but not cold. I didn't say that. Something in the way she said it, quiet, almost apologetic, pulled the air right out of the room. For a long time, neither of us spoke. There was only the faint sound of a car passing outside, the smell of oil, and that tension you can't name because naming it makes it real. Finally, she broke the silence. "This isn't normal." I almost smiled. No one said it was. She shook her head. "Don't do that. Don't make this sound like something we can joke about." Her tone cracked on the last word, and that was worse than shouting. "I'm not trying to," I said. What?" she asked, turning to face me fully now. Her eyes were wet, not from tears but from the kind of exhaustion that runs too deep to hide. "What are we even doing, huh? You fixing my car every week. Me sitting here like I have nowhere else to go." She stopped, swallowed. Her voice dropped. "You're too young to understand how much damage a quiet moment can cause." I wanted to tell her I wasn't a kid, that I'd been through things, too, that she wasn't the only one afraid of wanting something she shouldn't. But the words stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat. "So instead," I said, "then why do you keep coming back?" She looked at me for what felt like forever. I could see the answer on her face, that she didn't know, or maybe she did and just couldn't bear to say it. Her hands trembled when she set her coffee down on the counter. "Because you listen," she said finally. And I forgot what that felt like. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that hurts to breathe through. She turned to leave, and I thought she would. But at the door, she paused, her back still to me. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered. "It makes me remember I'm still alive." It was closing time when she came in again. No car this time, no reason at all. Just the sound of her heels against the concrete and the faint smell of rain that always seemed to follow her. "You shouldn't be here this late," I said, though I didn't mean it. She leaned against the counter, eyes distant. I was nearby. That wasn't true. She lived at least half an hour away. I knew because I dropped her off once when her car refused to start. She watched me put away tools in silence. There was something off about her stillness, like she'd already made a decision I hadn't caught up to yet. When I turned, she was holding something, a small, folded photograph. She unfolded it carefully, fingers tracing the edges before she slid it across the counter toward me. A man, mid-30s, smiling like he meant it. Her hand was on his shoulder. "He used to come here, too," she said softly. "Years ago." I glanced up at her, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking somewhere through me, into the memory. "My husband," she added, almost as an afterthought. "He used to fix the same car you're always saving now." There was a long pause. The air felt heavier, like the walls were holding their breath. "I didn't know," I said quietly. "You weren't supposed to." Her voice wasn't angry, just tired, the way a door sounds when it closes after being open too long. She looked at the photo again. "He died on a rainy night. The steering locked. I wasn't with him. I still don't know if it was something he did wrong or something I did." The words fell softly, but each one hit like a slow, sinking weight. "I kept bringing the car in," she continued, "thinking if someone just fixed it right this time, maybe I'd stop feeling like it was my fault." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to reach for her hand, but she'd folded her arms, a quiet wall I didn't have permission to cross. "He looks a bit like you," she said then, and that changed everything. I froze. "Like me?" She nodded once. "Not the face, just the way you stand when you're thinking. The way you talk to people like they still have a chance." The shop lights buzzed above us. The smell of oil mixed with something faintly floral from her perfume. My chest felt tight, not from pity, from something deeper, harder to name. "Maybe that's why I keep showing up," she whispered. Not because of you, but because you remind me I'm allowed to miss him. There wasn't a right response to that. I just nodded, barely, and she seemed to understand. When she turned to leave, she stopped at the doorway. The streetlight outside cut her outline in gold. I didn't mean to make you a replacement, she said, voice almost breaking. You just happened to be kind at the wrong time. Then she left, and the photo stayed on the counter, still open, still smiling. I stood there for a long time, the hum of the lights swallowing everything. Realizing that I'd fallen for a ghost I could never compete with, it was almost closing again, the kind of late where the world forgets to make noise. The shop lights hummed low, a faint orange glow from the street slipping in through the glass. She was sitting on the hood of her car, legs crossed, coat draped over her shoulders like a fragile kind of armor. I didn't say anything when I saw her, just went back to sweeping the floor that didn't really need it. You got quiet again, she said, her voice carrying in the stillness. You told me I talked too much, I said. She smiled faintly. I didn't mean you should listen this hard. I looked up. Her eyes were softer now, not tired, not guarded, just honest. Like she'd finally stopped running from something only she could see. I saw the photo, I said. The one you left. She nodded slowly. I meant to take it back. Why didn't you? Because it doesn't hurt as much here, she said, gesturing vaguely to the space between us. The concrete floor, the hum of the lights, the faint smell of oil and rain that seemed to linger even when it was dry outside. She slipped off the hood and stood close enough that I could see the faint tremor in her hands. I don't want you to think I came here to remember him, she said quietly. Somewhere along the way, I started coming here to forget. The air felt heavier, but not in the same painful way as before. Just real. Bare. I don't know what this is, I admitted. But I don't want it to end pretending it wasn't something. Her breath caught, small, almost imperceptible. Then she stepped closer, her shoulder brushing mine. You really think we can name it? She whispered. No, I said. And maybe that's what makes it real. She laughed softly under her breath, that quiet kind of laugh that breaks and heals at once. For a long while, we didn't move. She leaned against the workbench. I stood beside her, both of us staring at nothing in particular, just sharing the same air, the same silence. Then she reached for my hand, not in a sudden way, but like it had been waiting there all along. Her fingers were warm this time, no trembling, no hesitation, just there. We didn't speak. Words would have ruined it. Her head tilted slightly toward my shoulder, and for the first time since I'd met her, she let herself rest. No performance, no mask. Just two people who'd run out of reasons to fight what already existed. I could feel her pulse against my wrist, steady, real, alive. Outside, a car passed, headlights flickering across the walls. Inside, the air stayed still, holding us like the moment was afraid to end. When she finally whispered, her voice was barely sound. Maybe trying forever isn't about handling someone, she said. Maybe it's just staying when they stop pretending. I didn't answer. I just squeezed her hand once, quietly, like a promise neither of us had to say out loud. And for the first time, the silence between us didn't feel heavy. It felt like home. It's strange how some people leave, and the silence they leave behind becomes the only language you understand. It's been 6 months since I last saw her. The shop's the same oil stains on the floor, the same half-working radio, the same smell of metal and rain. But I'm not. Not really. She sold the Volvo, left the photo behind again, tucked into the top drawer of my workbench. I never moved it. Some days I look at it before I start working, not to miss her, but to remind myself what it means to see someone. Back then, I thought love was something you proved. You showed up, you fixed things, you promised forever. I didn't realize that sometimes love is quieter, the act of not fixing what someone needs to live with. I learned that from her. She taught me how people can carry whole worlds inside them, grief, guilt, tenderness, and still find the courage to share a little piece of it, even when it hurts. She never said she loved me. I never said it either. But there was a night she laughed into my shoulder like it was the first time she'd remembered how. I think that was our version of saying it. Sometimes, when I close up, I still hear her voice, that low, measured tone that could make anything sound like a lesson. You can't handle me. And the younger version of me, still somewhere inside, wants to answer, watch me try forever. But now I know what I didn't then. That trying forever doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means letting someone go when the story's done and carrying what they gave you instead. She once said she came here to forget. Maybe I was the one who remembered too much. Either way, we met in the middle, in that quiet space where neither of us had to be fixed or forgiven or saved. Just understood. The world moved on, like it always does. But every now and then, when it rains and the lights flicker in the shop, I catch myself looking at the empty stool by the window. And for a second, I can almost hear her laugh again. Soft, broken, beautiful. That's the thing about people like her. They don't stay to be handled. They stay just long enough to change the way you see everything that comes after. If you've ever had someone like that, someone who showed up in your life, wrecked your sense of balance, and quietly made you better for it, you know what I mean. And if you haven't yet, maybe you will. Just be ready when they say, "You can't handle me." Because sometimes, trying forever is the only thing worth doing.